Hello everyone and welcome. Today I'm going to show you how to create a login for your application, meaning that you can define a set of users that can use your application, and not just to define a set of users, but to define what each of them can do or cannot do in terms of using some functionalities of your application. In order to do that, I'm going to create a really basic demo which you can of course expand as you want. VCL Forms application, and let's say that this is going to be my login screen. I'm just going to put some basic components. The design is up to you. It's pretty much not the topic of this video. Okay, so this is just going to say username. I'm going to add edit field here. Let me just change the parent font. Okay. This I will call username. Okay. And I will delete the text. I'm going to copy paste this for a password field as well. And I'm going to name this component ePassword. And at the end I need to check a login by clicking a button. And here it is. This is our login screen. Okay, so once I have this, I need to check if the username and password are correct by clicking this button. First question is, where are my data logins, meaning where my user and password information stored? Well, I will use a database for that purpose. So I have a test database, and I'm going to create a new table that will contain info about my application users. So I'm going to create ID for a primary key. That is going to be pretty much something like auto number. Username, password, and you can have here anything you like. For example, real name, address, email, shoe number, whatever you want. For example, let's just say last visit. That will be date and time, and let's add something that concerns privileges. For example, if the current user is admin user or not. So that is going to be true or false, or a bit data type inside SQL Server. And let's save that as a login table. Okay, so let's refresh this. Here is my login, and let's edit that table. Let's add two users. For example, user1 with password pass1. Considering password, I will strongly recommend that you always encrypt this field. You can use it, hash functions are pretty much invented for such purposes, so please check out my video regarding hash functions, and you will see how to hash some string, and you can store it inside the database and check if hashes match when checking if the password is correct. So I pretty much don't recommend that you ever have a password field as a plain text. If someone breaks in your database, it will have pretty much everything as a plain text, and it will see the passwords automatically. But if you encrypt them using some hash function, that will not be so, right? Last visit, still unknown. Admin user, let's say that he is not admin user, and I'm going to create a second user, user2 with second password. Like I said, encrypt the passwords, and let's say that this is the admin user. So okay, so I have two users, right? So how can my application check if this current username and password matches one of those. Well, first I need to connect to that database, so I can use ADO connection. I will use ADO table directly here because it's faster. So connection string, I'm going to connect to my SQL server, to my instance testDB. So regarding this connection to the database, you also have a detailed video on my YouTube, so check it out as well if you need to. Okay, and I need to select a table name login. So that is the table that we use to store our login info, and activate the table. Right, so this is our login screen, and this is the component that we are going to use to check if this info is correct, meaning the user and username and password. But if it's all correct, then I need to go to the second window that I'm going to use as a main window. And just for some demonstration purposes, okay, I'm just going to increase the font. Let's say that I have some welcome message here that I'm going to call the welcome, label welcome. And let's say that I have two buttons here. The first button will demonstrate button 1, for example. All users can click it. You can imagine this button as some functionality of your application. It doesn't need to be a button. It can be a menu item or some other sort of functionality. So I'm going to add a button 1 that can be accessed by all users, and I'm going to add a button 2 that can be accessed only by admin users. Okay, so if it is not admin user, he will not be able to click this button. That is my plan. So I'm going to say, okay, so when I click this, I need to show this main window, and if user is admin, to be able to click this button. If it's not admin, not to be able to click this button. Now let's see if entered username and password are correct. First I'm going to create a flag that will say found. I presume that I didn't found a user in my table, and in order to check it, I will call the component table login. Okay, and I'm going to say table login, go to the first record, then check all the records inside the table, and say if so I'm going to add this, if table login, meaning the current record field by name. So here I want to check if e-username, meaning the username that is typed in here, corresponds to any of those usernames here in this column username. So pretty much I'm checking this column username, and that's what I'm going to say here. So I'm checking the username column as string. If it matches the text that is typed in this e-username component. Okay, this comparison here is case sensitive, and pretty much we don't need to check case sensitivity when checking a username. So I'm going to check these two by, for example, lowercase or uppercase. It's pretty much not important. It will eliminate case sensitivity checking. So if I found my user inside database table, I will need to check if his password is correct. So I will just, like I said, I checked for a username and I found the username. Now I need to check if his password that is stored inside this column matches the e-password text. E-password. In this case, I need to be very specific, meaning I need to check for case sensitivity. So I'll remove this. So pretty much saying that a username is checked without case sensitivity and the password is checked using the case sensitivity. And if username and password both matches, then I will say first I found the user. So as you remember, I used this flag to say did I found the user or not. And if I found the user, I can say a few things here. For example, login, field by name. So as you can see, I have a last visit column, and I will say last visit as date time equals now, meaning now it is the last visit, but before that I need to edit the record, edit, and save it. Okay, so I say I found the record, I set the last visit, and I break. Okay, so break meaning I don't need to search any more users. I found the one that I was looking for. And let's see here, after all that is done, I will simply say if I found the user, then I need to show this main window. Okay, in order this form to show the second form, this form needs to include the header of this form here. We can simply click on this login form and say use unit. Which unit? Unit 2. And if I go to unit 1 CPP, this line is automatically added. Okay, and once it is added, I can say, for example, this is let's say f main. Okay, and this is L welcome, f main label welcome, caption equals welcome for example username, text, and show model. Now let's try this. Login screen, username and password. So I have two users, username and password. Let's try the user 2. User 2. And I'm going to say pass to. Intentionally I've set this to uppercase, login. I didn't set the message. If I found it, okay, else show message, username, password not correct. Okay, I will also set this button admin disabled by default. Enabled, not enabled. Not correct. So let's say user 1 pass 1, not correct, and the correct password is lowercase plus 1, and voila, now we have logged in as a user 1, and it says here welcome user 1. Okay, if I log in as a user 2, username not correct. Let's see what happens here. I forgot to say, if I didn't found data in the current record, then check the next record. Next. Okay, so user 1 pass 1 found, user 2 pass 2 found. And as you can see, we have a little detail to set here, and that is user 1 is not admin user and user 2 is admin user. So but when we logged in with user 2, that is admin user, he still cannot click the button, and that is the part that we need to write now. So meaning in this part we have enabled our user to log in, but now we need to give him some privileges. And the best thing to do here is to say if the current user, I set break, so I'm already at the current user, field by name, I'll just copy that. What field am I checking? Admin field. As boolean equals true. So if the current user is admin, then button 2 enabled equals true, else false. Now let's see. User 1 password 1. Okay, user 1 is not admin, so he cannot click the button. User 2 password 2, and user 2 can click the button. So as you can see, that is the way you can create a login and add some privileges to your users. This can be really various set of features that you can enable, disable. You can pretty much say enabled or, for example, visible. So some users may not need even to know that some feature exists until they have required privileges. So that is how it's pretty much done. This is just one of the ways you can do it. So that is the way I do it, and I can say it's pretty simple, but if you have any other ideas, I'm really looking forward to see them. So contact me in your comments, and I hope this can be really useful to you. Well guys, like always, thank you for watching, and if you have any comments or suggestions for new videos, always contact me. Thank you for watching, and see you next time.